You know, there's some fighters that we criticize highly and we actually ridicule as boxing fans unfairly because we don't take into account their entire careers. What we take into account is some incident or issue that highlighted a certain aspect, or usually a negative aspect, of their careers. I am guilty of this, I will tell you that. In some of my discussions, I negatively highlight certain people, and that is not true of a true boxing fan. A true boxing fan is able to be critical of certain people, but not name call or disrespect them because of the great achievements they have attained. You can't just isolate a particular incident and discard all the achievements they have had in their careers. And I'm guilty of that. And I'm going to try and stop doing that as a person who claims to be a true fan of boxing. One example of this is Antonio Margarito. A lot of times, I can only speak for myself, I get caught up in the glove scandal that happened before his fight with Shane Mosley. And I allow that to tarnish the entire span and career and achievements of Antonio Margarito, which is truly unfair to Antonio Margarito. And Antonio Margarito may resurface in the sport of boxing again. I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing the veteran fighters out there fighting. I was really impressed with Antonio Tarver's performance against Steve Cunningham. I was really truly impressed. I can't say how much I was impressed by that. And I look forward to Antonio Margarito's return to the sport of boxing. I wish him nothing but the best. Antonio Margarito was a true welterweight, and that's where he best performed. And we're going to talk about him. First of all, his achievements. Antonio Margarito is a 4-time welterweight champion. 4 times. And his career began back in 1994. But what's impressive about him is he worked his way into championship contention. He had a couple losses along the way. But Antonio Margarito, what really impressed me about him was his ability and his work ethic. This guy is a tireless worker. He's tough as well. He's pretty sturdy, so he can take a punch. But on top of that, he could really deliver a punch. And the thing about Antonio Margarito, he wasn't a one-punch knockout artist. He didn't have that gifting. He worked. An accumulation of punishment is what got his opponents out of there. In the spirit of Pipino Cuevas and Carlos Palomino, Antonio Margarito was a well-conditioned athlete. He won his WBO NABO welterweight title against David Kamau, and that was a fantastic event in which he knocked out Kamau in the second round. He would get his first shot as the WBO World Welterweight title against Daniel Santos, a Puerto Rican fighter who they ended up with a no contest because Antonio Margarito got an accidental cut over his right eye due to a headbutt. Now the thing about it is, you would hear about Antonio Margarito's right eye throughout his career, and the problems he had with that eye as time expands, and you will see this as we cover it. Now he went on, though he didn't get the opportunity to capture the WBO World Welterweight title. He got the opportunity, but he didn't capture it. He went on to fight another opponent the following year, 2002. He faced Antonio Diaz. He was able to stop him in the 10th round to capture the vacant WBO World Welterweight title. He would go on to defend this title 3 times before losing it by technical decision again due to a cut over his right eye caused by an accidental headbutt in his rematch with Daniel Santos. But this was at super welterweight, so he still retained his welterweight title. He would go on to defend his title 4 more times from 2005 all the way up to 2006, and then he would lose to Paul Williams in 2007. So in all, he had 7 successful title defenses, sort of like Pipino Cuevas and guys like Carlos Palomino. In the spirit of those guys, he had 7 successful title defenses, finally losing to Paul Williams in a really epic fight undefeated Paul Williams at that, to lose the WBO welterweight title. But not shortly after, he would work his way back by knocking out Golden Johnson to get the vacant WBO Intercontinental Regional welterweight title. And then he would go on to face Kermit Cintron. And he would fight him. Kermit Cintron at the time was the IBF World Welterweight Champion. He would fight him and knock him out in the 6th round with a body shot. Again, accumulation of body punches. Antonio Margarito was an excellent body puncher. And, he was tough as well. He had a reasonably good high guard defense as well. So he was able to defeat Kermit Cintron. This would be his 2nd world title. And not only that, but his 2nd welterweight title. He would go on to be stripped of the IBF world title or discard it to face Miguel Cotto in an epic battle that went almost the distance. But he really gave Miguel Cotto serious punishment. No fighter had ever been butchered that badly in a fight, in which it raised eyebrows how much power Antonio Margarito seemed to have in that fight, really de-shaping Miguel Cotto's face. And the fight was eventually stopped in the 11th round, and Antonio Margarito got a TKO. And I must say, this is the first time I ever saw Antonio Margarito really completely destroy a person. It looked like he actually fractured a couple bones in Miguel Cotto's face. The pounding that Miguel Cotto took. And that raised eyebrows. And I think that's the first place where I saw something, and I was wondering what on earth was going on there. Of course, the infamous Shane Mosley discovery that his gloves had plaster of Paris in it. Still, the fight continued, and Shane Mosley knocked out Antonio Margarito for the first time in his entire career. I don't know what psychological effect that had on Antonio Margarito, but I must say, though, I was still impressed with his career up to the point of the Miguel Cotto fight, which was the only fight, in my opinion, that I saw just severe damage to Miguel Cotto I had never seen before. Margarito had never done that to any opponent. And then Shane Mosley came and knocked out Margarito. They discovered the gloves. I think, to be honest with you, that was a dark point. Both fights were dark points in Antonio Margarito's career. I don't know if he was aware of it. I can't categorically say that. I believe he had some sort of cognition that something was different with his punching power. So he might have been aware of it. But the thing about it is that sullied his entire career because of those two particular fights, which is very, very sad. However, I must say that Antonio Margarito, after that, his career wasn't as stellar as before. He was beaten by Manny Pacquiao afterwards. And again, he had eye problems. Same right eye. In fact, it said he fractured his right eye socket. And then in the Miguel Cotto fight, it was stopped because of a swelling around his right eye. So the right eye problems kept on resurfacing from the very first time he had a championship bout to finally against Miguel Cotto, who exacted his revenge over him, retiring him in the 9th round of that fight. Now, like I said, unfortunately, the discovery of him having loaded gloves due to the incident with Shane Mosley sort of sullied his career. But truthfully speaking, I can say I believe that Miguel Cotto fight, probably he had loaded gloves. I don't know who loaded his gloves. I knew he probably was aware of it in some way, shape, or form. But when you really take into consideration his 7 title defenses, which means 8 wins in a row at welterweight, and then being able to reclaim the welterweight title after that, okay, and then reclaim it yet again. So he's a 3-time welterweight champion. I probably said 4, but he's a 3-time welterweight champion. That's just amazing to me. Now, of course, one of those welterweight titles, I guess, against Miguel Cotto, we may have to discard. So he's really a 2-time welterweight champion. But still, it's impressive what this man has done. 7 consecutive defenses. I mean, that's really impressive. Between 2002 to 2006, 2007 or 2008. That's really impressive. So I wanted to just say, give all tribute to Antonio Margarito. I hope to see him again in boxing if he decides to return to the ring. I believe he can set the record straight, right the wrongs that may have happened by coming back to the ring and fighting. I mean, Antonio Margarito will always go down in history as one of the great welterweights of this era and of previous eras as well. He'll be noted as that because he was a great welterweight. He did some phenomenal things. Unfortunately for him, he was caught up in some controversy. I'm hoping that he would continue on the path that he was walking on, which was to do things the hard way, to do things and work your way into a championship, because nothing was handed to Antonio Margarito. Antonio Margarito worked for everything. And it was sad that, we had to find out that he had plaster of Paris in his raps, because I'm telling you now, this guy, he worked hard to get where he was at. And so it was kind of sad to see that there were some shortcuts that were taken and ethics were thrown out the window for at least 2 fights as far as we know. I'm hoping and I'm wishing the best for Antonio Margarito. I hope that he comes back because I like to see some of the veteran fighters come back. They can bring a thing or two to the game. And even if they don't bring much to the game, it's just nice to see them mixing it in there with some pretty good world-class competition, even if it's C-level or even C- level competition. Just to see them out there doing it is a wonderful thing. So I wish the best to Antonio Margarito. Much respect to him. I'll try not to call him, nicknames and disgrace him, because this guy has earned his stripes. And even though, he made some mistakes, I think it's only fair for us as fans, seeing the successes he's had in his career, to also forgive him of those mistakes and give him a chance to redeem himself. You guys have a great one.